My name is Maya Hartwell, and I'm 32, a designer living in San Francisco. Last June, I got a text from my parents that felt like a punch to the chest. Sorry, Maya. No room for you at the Lake Tahoe retreat this year. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, the words blurring as my eyes stung. This wasn't new. I'd gotten similar messages for 3 years, but this time it hurt deeper. Hours later, I was scrolling Instagram, trying to distract myself, when I saw my brother Mason's post. It was a photo of a guest itinerary for the retreat, captioned, "Biggest family gathering yet." I zoomed in on the blurry image. There it was, 118 confirmed guests. My 6 siblings, their spouses, kids, cousins, even my dad's old college roommate. Everyone but me. I texted Mason, keeping it light. Wow, 118 people? Must be packed. His reply came fast. Yeah. Dad rented 2 extra properties to fit everyone. My stomach twisted. They'd rented houses, but there was no space for me. I set my phone down and walked to my apartment window, the San Francisco skyline glowing against the night. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I sank to the floor, hugging my knees. It wasn't about space. It was about me not fitting their mold, single, no kids, an artist in a family of bankers, lawyers, and doctors. The Lake Tahoe retreat was more than a vacation. It was my family's heart, started by my grandparents, Clara and Henry Hartwell, nearly 40 years ago. They fell in love with Tahoe's clear waters and pine forests on their honeymoon, and Grandpa Henry would say, "This is where our family will always come together." When I was 6, they bought a 10-acre lakefront estate, a lodge with a private dock and a porch that wrapped around like a warm hug. Those summers were everything. My oldest brother, Ethan, 38, would lead us on scavenger hunts through the woods, hiding treasures in tree hollows. Sophia, 36, and Olivia, 30, helped Grandma Clara bake apple pies in the open kitchen, their laughter mixing with the smell of cinnamon. The twins, Mason and Noah, 34, were always climbing the tallest pines or sneaking extra marshmallows at bonfires. Emma, 28, the baby, followed Grandpa everywhere, holding his gardening gloves as he tended roses. And me? I was Grandpa's shadow in a different way. He'd take me on what he called vision walks around the property, just the 2 of us. I'd sketch the mountains reflecting in the lake, my small hands gripping a pencil. "Maya, you see the world in colors others miss," he'd say, setting up an easel on the porch. He'd sit beside me for hours, watching me paint, offering quiet encouragement. "Your art's your voice. Don't let anyone silence it." When I chose art school over the finance degree my parents wanted, everything changed. My dad, Thomas, a banking CEO, didn't hold back. "Artists don't build futures," he said at dinner, his voice sharp. Mom, Margaret, nodded, her face a mirror of his disappointment. Only Clara and Henry supported me, sending me art supplies and calling to hear about my projects. But when they passed away during my sophomore year, Grandma's heart giving out, Grandpa following months later, the retreat lost its soul. My parents took over, turning our joyful gatherings into formal events packed with Dad's business contacts and Mom's socialite friends. The guest list grew, but I started disappearing from them. The first time I was excluded was 3 years ago. The text came 2 weeks before the retreat. "Maya, we're keeping it small. Just immediate family. No space." I was 29, building my design studio, and I told myself it was fine. Maybe they needed sibling bonding. Maybe my work kept me too busy. But then I saw the photos on social media. Not just my siblings, but 60 people, including cousins, family, friends, and Dad's clients. I called Sophia, hoping for an explanation. "We thought you were swamped with work," she said, her tone defensive. "Swamped?" Sure, I was freelancing through art school, landing clients from tech startups to luxury brands. By graduation, I had a portfolio that opened doors. Today, I run a studio with a client list that makes me proud. But to my parents, it's not a real job. That first exclusion hurt, but I made excuses for them. I cried myself to sleep, but told myself it didn't matter. The next 2 years followed the same pattern. Each time, the text arrived. No room. Each time, Instagram showed the truth. 80 guests, then 100, then 118. I'd act like it was fine, focusing on my business, pretending the rejection didn't sting. But that June evening, staring at Mason's post, I couldn't pretend anymore. My hands shook as I counted the names I could make out. Ethan, Sophia, Mason, Noah, Olivia, Emma, their families, cousins I hadn't seen in years, even mom's sister's entire clan. My chest tightened, my breathing shallow. I sat on the floor for an hour, memories flooding back. The time my art won a national contest, but my parents went to Noah's baseball game instead. The Christmas where everyone got thoughtful gifts, but I got a $50 gift card. The family photos where I was always on the edge, easy to crop out. I call my best friend, Zoe, my rock from art school. They invited 118 people, Zoe. I said, voice breaking. They don't want me. She didn't soften it. Maya, this isn't a mistake. It's deliberate. You're not imagining this. She was right. My parents were punishing me for choosing art, for not being Ethan, the golden child who followed dad into banking, or Sophia, the perfect corporate wife, or the twins, lawyers at dad's urging, or Olivia, the pediatrician, or Emma, the teacher with a stable life. I was the black sheep, the disappointment. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, replaying every slight, imagining confronting my parents, posting the truth online, showing up uninvited at Tahoe. But as dawn broke, sunlight hitting my awards on the wall, Best Emerging Designer, Top 30 Under 30, I saw it differently. I'd built something real, something Grandpa Henry believed in. Why was I chasing their approval? Over coffee, staring at a photo of Clara and Henry, I remembered Grandma's favorite quote from Maya Angelou. When people show you who they are, believe them. They'd shown me over and over. Now it was my turn to show myself. I called Professor Elena Voss, my design mentor, over video chat. I'm so tired of hurting, I said, tears spilling. What do I do with this? Elena adjusted her silver braid, her eyes kind but fierce. Maya, you're a creator. When they shut you out, you build something bigger. Make something so beautiful, it reminds you who you are. Her words lit a fire. What if I created my own retreat? Not to compete, but to celebrate me, my art, my people, my truth? I opened my laptop and started searching Tahoe rentals. That's when I found Sapphire Cove Estate, 6 bedrooms, a private beach, lake views that felt like freedom. It was 20 minutes from my family's place, available the same week, and expensive enough to make me pause. I'd been saving for a condo, but this felt like a calling. As I stared at the listing, Grandpa's voice echoed. Your art will take you places. This was my place, my chance to build something new. The idea of my own retreat kept me up all night, my mind racing with possibilities. By morning, I was sketching a logo for what I called the Creative Souls Retreat, swirling blues for Tahoe's waters, gold for the spark of creativity. I wanted it to feel like Clara and Henry's retreats, full of connection and joy, not the networking circus my parents had made. I called Lauren Bennett, my friend and client who runs an event planning business. I designed her brand's website last year, and we bonded over coffee and big dreams. We met for tacos in the Mission District, the smell of fresh tortillas filling the air. You're throwing a rival retreat? Lauren laughed, her eyes lighting up. Not rival, I said, grinning. Real. Workshops, lake adventures, food that's art itself, like my grandparents' days. She was all in, pulling out her notebook to jot down ideas. We brainstormed like kids planning a secret club, sunrise yoga on the deck, pottery classes by the lake, bonfires with acoustic music under the stars. Lauren knew chefs who could craft farm-to-table meals. I knew artists who could lead sessions. Back home, I built a website for the retreat, pouring my design skills into every pixel. The homepage featured Sapphire Cove's glass-walled great room, the lake shimmering beyond. I wrote descriptions of the planned activities, photo hikes, creative journaling, sunset kayaking, and added bios for the workshop leaders I hoped to recruit. The guest list took longer. I started with Zoe, my art school soulmate who'd seen me through every high and low. Then came friends from my program, clients who'd become allies, like Lauren and my college roommate Mia and her husband, Sam. After some hesitation, I invited Olivia and Ethan, my siblings who'd shown occasional support, like when Olivia texted congratulations on my first big client or Ethan sent a card for my studio's launch. These were people who saw me, not the different daughter my parents dismissed. Doubt hit hard in the quiet hours. At 2 a.m., I'd stare at my ceiling, wondering if anyone would come. What if I blew my savings and ended up alone, embarrassed? But then I'd look at Clara and Henry's photo on my desk, their smiles steadying me. This wasn't about proving my family wrong. It was about proving myself right. I took 2 weeks off my studio, transferred a chunk of my savings for Sapphire Cove's deposit, and designed digital invites that felt like art pieces themselves. Elegant, inviting, personal. Lauren connected me with a catering company specializing in local ingredients, and we booked a photographer to capture the week. "This isn't just for your family," she said over coffee. "It's for everyone who's ever felt like they don't belong." I reached out to Celeste, a ceramicist whose work I admired, to lead a pottery workshop, and Julian, a nature photographer, for guided lake hikes. Zoe offered to run a session on creative journaling, something we'd done together in school to process tough days. Each confirmation email felt like a small victory, but the costs piled up. The deposit was just the start. Catering, housekeeping, supplies, it all added up. I took on extra freelance projects, designing logos and websites late into the night to keep my savings from draining completely. 2 weeks after Mason's Instagram post, I had 22 confirmed guests. Olivia texted, "Maya, this sounds amazing. So much better than the family's stuffy thing." Ethan declined, saying his kids had events at the family retreat, but added, "This is huge, Maya. Proud of you." Their words warmed me, but I felt something new, not anger or hurt, but purpose. I wasn't just reacting to my family's rejection. I was creating my own inclusion. A week before the retreat, I drove to Tahoe to check out Sapphire Cove in person. The property manager gave me a tour, pointing out the gourmet kitchen, the expansive decks, the private dock with 2 kayaks. Standing alone in the great room, the lake sparkling through floor-to-ceiling windows, I felt a rush of power. This was mine at least for a week, and I could fill it with whatever energy I chose. Back in San Francisco, I started assembling welcome baskets for each guest. I filled woven totes with locally made lavender soaps, bottles of Napa Valley wine, artisan chocolates, and custom journals embossed with the retreat's logo. For Olivia's basket, I tucked in a photo I'd found of us as kids, finger painting on Grandpa's porch, our faces smeared with color. As I worked, a text came from Mom. "Hope you're enjoying summer, Maya. Any plans next week?" They didn't even know I knew about their guest list. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted an Instagram photo of Sapphire Cove's sunset view, captioned, "Creative Souls Retreat begins soon. Ready to rise." My siblings followed my account. They'd see it. Zoe noticed my tension over video chat. "They expect you to stay silent," she said. "Show them you're not invisible." Her words fueled me. I kept planning, but a week out, the catering company called. "We're so sorry. We double-booked. We can't do your event." I sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by basket supplies, panic rising. "Zoe, 22 people are coming, and I have no chef," I said, voice shaking. "Breathe," she said. "I know someone." By evening, she'd connected me with Chef Isabella, a Culinary Institute grad between jobs. Isabella reviewed my menus and suggested tweaks: herb-crusted trout, roasted vegetable tarts, that elevated everything. What felt like a disaster became a blessing. The day before the retreat, I packed my car with supplies and drove to Tahoe. Pulling into Sapphire Cove's circular driveway, the house glowed in the afternoon light. I spent hours setting up, hanging string lights, arranging baskets in each bedroom, rehearsing my welcome speech. That night, alone on the deck, I watched the lake reflect the stars. I turned my family's rejection into this. I was ready. The first guests arrived just before noon. Zoe pulled up in her beat-up Volvo, her grin wide as she hugged me. "Maya, "This place is unreal," she said, taking in Sapphire Cove's soaring ceilings and lake views. Julian and his partner, Leo, arrived next, their cameras already out, snapping the property. My old roommate Mia and her husband Sam followed, then others, each arrival filling the house with warmth. Olivia showed up, her eyes wide as she clutched her welcome basket. "I had no idea you could pull this off," she whispered, hugging me tight. By sunset, all 22 guests were here. Designers, musicians, writers, friends who'd become family. Chef Isabella and her team were in the kitchen, prepping a welcome dinner of grilled peach salads and seared salmon. I stood on the deck, string lights twinkling overhead, and raised a glass. "To creativity, to connection, to making our own spaces," I said. Cheers echoed across the lake. The energy was electric, exactly what I dreamed of, Clara and Henry's spirit reborn. The first day was magic. Leo led a sunrise yoga session on the deck, the lake shimmering as we stretched. After breakfast, fresh fruit, homemade croissants. Julian took half the group on a photography hike, teaching them to capture Tahoe's light. Celeste set up pottery wheels on the patio, and guests laughed as clay spun under their fingers. I moved between groups, soaking in the joy. This was what my family's retreat had lost: authenticity, not networking. Guests posted photos on Instagram, tagging #CreativeSouls, and the comments poured in. "This looks incredible. Wish I was there." Olivia pulled me aside during a break. "Mom saw your posts," she said quietly. "I told her I'm here with you." I nodded, grateful she'd chosen me. My phone started buzzing with family texts. "Mason, what's this retreat? Looks dope." "Sophia, why's Olivia with you and not at the family thing?" I didn't respond, too caught up in the moment. That night, Isabella's dinner was a masterpiece: lavender-infused creme brulee, roasted beets with goat cheese. We ate on the deck, stories flowing, laughter rising. I felt Grandpa Henry's presence in the starlit sky. On day 3, we returned from a kayak tour to find an unexpected guest on the dock: Great Aunt Beatrice, Clara's sister, 84 and sharp as ever. "Saw your photos online," she said, smirking. "Your parents' event was too stuffy. This looked like fun." Beatrice was the family rebel, a former war correspondent who'd traveled the world when women were expected to stay home. She'd always sent me art books, encouraging my sketches. Over dinner, she shared stories of Clara and Henry's early retreats: bonfires, wildflower bouquets, kids running free. "They'd love this," she said, squeezing my hand. Later, over whiskey on the deck, she got serious. "Your parents have always favored your siblings. Clara and Henry saw it, and it broke their hearts. You're doing what they'd want, Maya." Her words healed something deep, like a wound I'd carried too long. By day 4, my family's texts grew insistent. "Noah, didn't know you were in Tahoe. Looks cool." "Emma, Mom's confused why you're not with us." I stayed focused, but then Mom called, her voice tight. "Beatrice didn't show up to our retreat. Where is she?" I kept my tone even. "She's here, Mom. With me." A long pause. "You're in Tahoe?" I didn't hold back. "I know you invited 118 people and rented extra properties. I made my own space." She stammered. "We're coming over." My heart raced, but Zoe was there, squeezing my hand. "You've got this." "We all do." An hour later, my parents' Lexus rolled into the driveway. I met them outside, not wanting to disrupt the pottery workshop in the great room. Mom's eyes narrowed, scanning Sapphire Cove's sleek lines. "What's going on, Maya?" she asked. I stood tall. "I'm hosting a Creative Souls retreat. Since I wasn't welcome at yours, I built my own." Dad's face tightened. "We said there was no room." I cut through. "You invited 118 people and rented houses. Don't pretend it was about space." The truth came out, calm but firm. "You've excluded me for 3 years. You've dismissed my career, celebrated my siblings, and pushed me out. I'm done acting like it's okay." Mom's expression flickered. Anger, then something softer, maybe shame. Dad looked past me. Through the windows where my guests were shaping clay, laughing together. "Who are all these people?" he asked. "People who value me," I said. "Friends, clients, Olivia." Mom flinched at Olivia's name. I held my ground. "My guests need me. You're welcome to join us for dinner at 7. As guests, not parents here to judge." I turned to walk away, but Dad called out, "Maya, this is impressive." It wasn't an apology, but from Thomas Hartwell, it was something. I nodded and went back inside, my chosen family waiting. Dinner that night was awkward at first. My parents sat at the long table on the deck, surrounded by artists and creators, looking out of place in their pressed clothes. Beatrice smoothed things over, telling stories of her days reporting in war zones, making everyone laugh. Zoe shared how my logo design won a national award, and Julian talked about my work inspiring his photography. Mom's face softened, hearing strangers respect me. Dad, usually all business, asked Celeste about her pottery process, his curiosity clumsy but real. As they left, Mom said, "Next year, we'll make sure there's room for you." I smiled, not committing. I'd created something too precious to give up. The retreat hummed on. Julian's photo hikes produced shots that sparkled like Tahoe's waters. Celeste's pottery class had guests crafting bowls, their hands messy but joyful. Zoe's journaling session brought tears as people wrote about their dreams. Beatrice joined every activity, her energy lighting up the house. On day 5, Mason showed up unannounced. "Needed a break from the family chaos," he said, sheepish. I gave him a tour, introduced him to my friends, and invited him to our bonfire. As guitars played and stories flowed, I saw the boy he used to be, building sandcastles with me by the lake, not the lawyer Dad shaped. He stayed for dinner, laughing with Leo about Tahoe's hiking trails. My phone kept buzzing with family texts. "Sophia, Mom's upset you're stealing her thunder." "Ethan, your retreat looks amazing. Sorry I couldn't come." I ignored them, but Beatrice's words from our whiskey night stuck with me. "Clara and Henry saw how your parents treated you differently. It hurt them, Maya." Her validation made me feel seen, like I wasn't imagining years of slights. On the final day, my parents returned with Sophia. "We thought we'd help pack up," Mom said, her tone forced. I led them to the garden away from my guests. Sophia jumped in. "You're making Mom and Dad feel terrible, Maya." I stayed calm. I didn't do this to hurt them. I did it to stop hurting. Dad surprised me. "You're right. We've favored your siblings. We've dismissed your career because it wasn't our plan for you." Mom's eyes welled up. "We thought art was too risky. We didn't understand your world." I pushed back. "You never tried. You skipped my gallery shows, ignored my awards, praised everyone but me." Dad's voice was low. "I'm sorry. Those words from Thomas Hartwell were rare. I can't promise we'll change overnight," he said, "but I want to try to see your world." Sophia shifted, uncomfortable with his vulnerability. "So, you'll come to our retreat next year?" she asked. I paused. "I'm not sure. This retreat healed me. I might do it again." Mom offered. "What if we coordinate dates? You could do both, or part of each." It was a small step, but genuine. "I'll consider it," I said. We walked back to the house for the closing circle, a tradition from art school where everyone shared reflections. Guests sat on cushions in the great room, passing a candle. Zoe cried, thanking me for creating a space to heal. Julian announced a gallery deal for his Tahoe photos. Beatrice said, "Clara and Henry are watching, proud." Dad, roped in, cleared his throat. "I'm not good at this, but this retreat showed me a side of Maya I didn't know." After, Mom pulled me aside. "Dinner next week? Just us." I nodded, "But I'm not changing who I am to fit your expectations." Dad met my eyes. "Maybe we're the ones who need to change." As they left, Sophia whispered, "Mason's been himself here. He hasn't stopped talking about last night." I rejoined my guests for a final lunch, Beatrice beside me, her eyes twinkling. "Sometimes the family you create matters more," she said. "But it's nice when both can meet halfway." Driving home from Tahoe, the mountain roads winding down, I felt different, stronger, lighter. My apartment, once a place of tears, now held triumph. I unpacked slowly, the welcome baskets, printed itineraries, and group photos reminding me what I'd built. A letter waited on my counter from Beatrice. Maya, Clara, and Henry wanted the Tahoe estate to foster creativity, not status. As their last surviving sibling, I've amended the family trust. 1 week each summer, the property is yours for your Creative Souls retreat. I sat down, crying, clutching the letter. My grandparents' legacy was mine to carry. I called Dad to discuss it. Your retreat brought back what the property was meant for, he said. We won't fight this. Planning next year's retreat on Clara and Henry's land felt sacred. A week later, I met my parents for dinner at their San Francisco home. The air was tense but new. Dad asked about my studio, real questions about my clients, my process. Mom showed me a ceramic bowl she'd bought, asking about its glazing technique. Over dessert, Dad said, "Our retreat's gotten too big, too formal. Next year, we're going back to just family like Clara and Henry wanted." Then, a surprise. "We'd like to visit your retreat next year, maybe a day or two, to see your world." I smiled. I'd like that. It wasn't a full fix, but it was a start. My siblings reacted in their own ways. Olivia and I started meeting for coffee, rebuilding our bond. Ethan invited me to his daughter's school art show, a small gesture that meant everything. Mason called, asking about my work with a curiosity I hadn't seen before. Sophia stayed defensive, siding with our parents. Noah and Emma kept their distance, unsure how to navigate this shift. I accepted it, focusing on therapy with Dr. Lee, who helped me unpack years of family patterns. "You stopped begging for inclusion and created it," she said. "That's your power." The retreat's impact rippled. Julian's Tahoe photos landed a major gallery show. Celeste got commissions for custom ceramics. My studio was featured in a design magazine, praising my creative community building. I started speaking at conferences, sharing how rejection fueled connection. Guests formed a Creative Souls alumni chat, planning collaborations and asking about next year. As I planned the next retreat, I envisioned it bigger, more inclusive, a haven for anyone who'd felt different. I sketched ideas at my desk, Clara and Henry's photo beside me, their spirits guiding my hands. Rejection had redirected me. I'd built a community, a tradition, a legacy. My family wasn't healed. Deep patterns don't vanish, but there was movement, a crack of light. I'd set boundaries without burning bridges, created space without closing doors. Looking out my window at the San Francisco skyline, I thought of everyone who's felt excluded, diminished, unseen. My retreat was a blueprint. Respond to rejection with creation, not despair. I opened my laptop, drafting next year's plans. My worth wasn't in my parents' approval or my siblings' acceptance. It was in my art, my relationships, my courage to stand in my truth. Back in San Francisco, the glow of the Creative Souls retreat lingered, but real life crept in fast. My apartment felt smaller after Sapphire Cove's open spaces, and my inbox was overflowing with client emails, deadlines I'd pushed aside to make the retreat happen. I sat at my desk, Clara and Henry's photo beside me, and opened Beatrice's letter again. Her words about the family trust, 1 week each summer at the Hartwell estate for my retreat, felt like a promise and a challenge. Could I scale this up, year after year, without losing its heart? I called Lauren to debrief over coffee at our favorite Mission District cafe, the one with mismatched mugs and jazz humming in the background. "Maya, that retreat was magic," she said, stirring her latte. "People are still texting me about it. When's round 2? I laughed, but my stomach tightened. I'm thrilled, but also terrified. It cost half my savings, and now Beatrice's given me the family estate. It's a lot." Lauren leaned forward, her planner already out. "Then let's make it sustainable. Charge a small fee, get sponsors, maybe partner with local businesses." Her practical energy grounded me, and we spent hours sketching ideas, early bird tickets, a scholarship fund for young artists, collaborations with Tahoe's wineries. Driving home, I felt a spark of possibility, but doubt still lingered. What if I couldn't live up to the first retreat? What if my family's tentative support fell apart? That evening, I met Olivia for coffee at a cozy spot near her hospital. She'd been texting me more since Tahoe, and I wanted to nurture this fragile reconnection. Over cappuccinos, she fidgeted with her cup. I told Mom and Dad how amazing your retreat was, she said. They're serious about visiting next year, but Sophia's not happy. She thinks you're splitting the family. I sighed, tracing the foam on my latte. I didn't start this to divide anyone. I just wanted a place where I belonged. Olivia nodded, her eyes soft. I know. And being there, seeing you shine, it made me realize how much we've missed. I want to help with next year's retreat, if you'll let me. Her offer caught me off guard, but it warmed me. I'd love that, I said. Maybe you could lead a session, something medical like mindfulness for stress? She grinned, already brainstorming. Back home, I started therapy with Dr. Lee, a soft-spoken woman Zoe recommended. In her quiet office, surrounded by plants, I unpacked the retreat and my family's reaction. Your parents' apology was a start, Dr. Lee said, but apologies don't erase years of hurt. How do you feel about their offer to coordinate retreats? I shifted on the couch, unsure. It's progress, but I'm guarding my heart. They've dismissed me for so long. What if they expect me to fall in line now? Dr. Lee's eyes were steady. You've built your own space. You get to decide who enters and on what terms. Her words stuck with me, a reminder I wasn't the pleading daughter anymore. Over the next weeks, I dove into my studio work, catching up on projects for a tech startup and a boutique hotel chain. My team, 2 freelancers I'd hired last year, noticed a change in me. You're different since Tahoe, said Priya, my graphic designer, as we reviewed mock-ups. More confident, like you're owning it. I smiled, realizing she was right. The retreat hadn't just been an event, it had reshaped me. One evening, Ethan called, his voice hesitant. Hey, Maya, I saw your retreat photos. Looked incredible. I'm sorry I couldn't make it. I braced myself, expecting an excuse, but he continued. My daughter, Lila, she's 9. She's been drawing nonstop since I showed her your Instagram. Wants to be an artist like you. Could you maybe talk to her sometime? His request surprised me. Ethan, the banker who'd always towed Dad's line, was reaching out. I'd love to, I said. Bring her by the studio. A week later, Ethan and Lila visited my office, a converted loft with exposed brick and art covering the walls. Lila's eyes lit up, clutching a sketchbook full of colorful drawings, flowers, animals, a wobbly Lake Tahoe. These are awesome, I told her, kneeling to her level. Want to try some new pencils? We spent an hour sketching together, Ethan watching quietly. As they left, he said, Thanks, Maya. This meant a lot to her and me. His sincerity lingered, another small bridge. But not everyone was ready to connect. Sophia texted, her tone sharp. Mom's stressed about next summer. You're making everything complicated. I didn't reply, choosing peace over conflict. Mason, though, surprised me with a call. I keep thinking about your bonfire, he said. It felt like when we were kids, no pressure. Can I swing by sometime? We met for beers at a dive bar, and for the first time in years, we talked like siblings, not competitors. He admitted Dad's expectations weighed on him, too. You're lucky, he said, doing what you love. I laughed softly. Lucky? It cost me their approval for years. He looked down, nodding. Fair. I'm just saying, I admire it. Planning for next year's retreat began in earnest. I emailed Beatrice, thanking her for the trust amendment and asking for her input. She replied with a long voice memo, her voice crackling with excitement. Make it bold, Maya. Clara and Henry always wanted the estate to be a haven for dreamers. I spent nights researching, contacting Tahoe artisans for workshops, and drafting a budget with Lauren. The Hartwell estate was larger than Sapphire Cove, with room for 40 guests, but it needed updates, new linens, better Wi-Fi, a renovated kitchen. I reached out to local businesses, securing sponsorships from a winery and an outdoor gear shop in exchange for branding. The Creative Souls alumni chat buzzed with ideas, and Julian offered to co-lead a photography masterclass. As winter approached, I felt a rhythm: work, family, planning, balancing my life in a way I hadn't before. One night, alone in my apartment, I pulled out my old sketchbook from Tahoe summers, filled with childhood drawings. On a blank page, I sketched the Hartwell estate, imagining next year's retreat. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about creating a space for others to find their voice, like Grandpa Henry had done for me.
Spring brought new momentum, but also new challenges. My studio landed a major contract with a national retail brand, designing their summer campaign. The workload was intense, but the exposure was huge. A chance to put my name on a bigger stage. I hired a third freelancer, a young illustrator named Jamal, whose vibrant style reminded me of my early days. "You're living my dream," he said during his interview, gesturing at my awards. "I want to learn from you." His enthusiasm pushed me to keep growing, even when exhaustion crept in. Family dynamics shifted, too. Mom and Dad invited me to dinner at their house, a rare gesture. Over grilled salmon and wine, they asked about the retreat, their curiosity genuine but cautious. "We're scaling back our gathering next summer," Dad said, cutting his fish. "Maybe 30 people, just family and close friends." "We'd love you there, Maya," Mom added, "and we meant it about visiting your retreat. Maybe we could help set up." I sipped my wine, weighing their words. "I appreciate that," I said. "I'll let you know how you can be involved, but my retreat's its own thing. I need it to stay true to what I built." Dad nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Fair enough." It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Olivia threw herself into planning, suggesting a workshop on art therapy, blending her medical background with creativity. We met weekly, sketching ideas over takeout in my apartment. "I've always envied your courage," she admitted one night. Chopsticks paused. "Following your passion, no matter what Mom and Dad said." I was stunned. Olivia, the golden doctor, envied me? "It didn't feel brave," I said. "It felt like survival." She nodded, and we sat in a new kind of understanding. Ethan kept in touch, sending me Lila's latest drawings via text. I invited them to a local art fair, where Lila and I painted faces at a kid's booth, her giggles infectious. Ethan watched, his usual reserve softening. "I told Dad about Lila's art," he said later. "He's actually encouraging it. That's new." I smiled, seeing a ripple from my retreat reach even Dad. But Sophia's distance grew. At a family brunch, she barely spoke to me, her eyes fixed on her phone. Later, she texted, "You're turning everyone against the family retreat. It's selfish." Her words stung, but Dr. Lee helped me reframe it. "Sophia's reacting to change," she said. "Your success challenges her role as the perfect daughter." I chose not to engage, focusing on those who met me halfway. Mason became a surprising ally. He visited my studio, curious about my process, and we ended up grabbing pizza, reminiscing about Tahoe summers. "I'm thinking about switching firms," he confessed. "Something less corporate, more human." "Your retreat." It made me question stuff. I encouraged him, feeling a bond we'd lost years ago. The retreat planning intensified. Lauren and I visited the Hartwell estate in April, walking the grounds with a contractor. The lodge needed minor repairs, but its charm, wooden beams, stone fireplace, was intact. We mapped out spaces: the lawn for yoga, the dining hall for workshops, the dock for evening talks. Beatrice joined us, her cane tapping as she pointed out her favorite spots. "This is where Clara taught me to fish," she said, smiling at the lake. Her stories fueled my vision. Back in San Francisco, I launched an early bird ticket system, offering discounts to alumni. Within days, 15 spots sold, including Zoe, Julian, and Celeste. I set up a scholarship fund, covering 2 spots for young creatives, funded by a local gallery I'd worked with. Chef Isabella signed on again, excited to cook in the Hartwell kitchen. One night, I got a call from Noah, the quieter twin. "I saw your retreat website," he said, his voice hesitant. "It looks different, in a good way. Can we talk about it?" We met for coffee, and he admitted feeling trapped in his law career. Your retreat seems so free, he said. I don't know how to get there. I invited him to join next year. No pressure. Just come as you, I said. He didn't commit, but his call felt like a step. As summer neared, I balanced work and planning, sketching promotional art for the retreat late at night. The retail campaign launched, earning praise online, and my studio's profile grew. Jamal's illustrations went viral, and I gave him a raise, proud to lift him up. In therapy, I reflected on my growth. You're not just surviving rejection anymore, Dr. Lee said. You're thriving in your truth. I left her office lighter, ready for what came next.
Summer arrived, and with it, the second Creative Souls retreat at the Hartwell Estate. Driving to Tahoe, my car packed with supplies, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. The lodge looked timeless, its porch overlooking the lake, just as I remembered from childhood. Lauren and I arrived early, setting up welcome baskets, now with local honey and hand-woven bracelets, and hanging fairy lights across the lawn. Olivia joined us, organizing her art therapy supplies, her enthusiasm contagious. Guests trickled in, 40 this time, a mix of alumni and newcomers. Zoe arrived first, hugging me fiercely. "This is home," she said, eyeing the estate. Julian and Leo set up their cameras, Celeste unloaded clay, and Isabella's team filled the kitchen with the smell of fresh herbs. New faces included a poet from Oakland, a sculptor from Reno, and 2 scholarship recipients, both shy but eager. The opening night was perfect. We gathered on the dock, the lake reflecting a pink sunset, and I toasted. To new beginnings, to chosen family, to creating without fear. The air buzzed with possibility. The week unfolded like a dream. Olivia's art therapy session had guests painting their emotions, tears and laughter mixing. Julian's masterclass produced stunning photos, some already slated for a group show. Celeste's pottery wheels spun daily, and a local musician led sunset jam sessions. Beatrice, now a retreat regular, shared stories by the fire, her voice carrying Clara and Henry's spirit. My parents visited on day 3, as promised. They arrived with Ethan and Lila, who ran to me with a new sketchbook. "Look, Aunt Maya," she said, showing a drawing of the lodge. I hugged her, then greeted Mom and Dad. They toured the estate, Mom touching the porch railing where she'd played as a child. "This feels like Mom and Dad's time," she said softly. Dad joined a photography hike, asking Julian awkward but earnest questions. At dinner, they sat among guests, listening to stories of art and healing. As they left, Dad pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you, Maya. This is something special." His words, simple but real, settled deep. Mason and Noah attended the final day, drawn by curiosity. Mason joined a journaling session, scribbling thoughts he later shared with me. "I'm quitting my firm," he said quietly, "starting my own practice, something smaller." Noah, still reserved, tried pottery, his hands clumsy but willing. "This isn't my thing," he admitted, "but I get why it's yours." Their presence felt like another bridge, however small. Sophia, Emma, and their family stayed away, attending the family retreat instead. Olivia told me it was smaller, more like old times, but tensions lingered. "Sophia's still upset," she said. "Give her time." I nodded, accepting what I couldn't change. The closing circle was emotional. Guests shared breakthroughs, a poet finishing a manuscript, a sculptor finding her style, Lila vowing to keep drawing. Beatrice spoke last. "Maya's given us a gift, a place to be whole. Carry it forward." I cried, overwhelmed by the community we'd built. Back in San Francisco, the retreat's impact grew. The group show sold out, with Julian crediting my vision. Celeste ceramics appeared in a design store, and the scholarship recipients sent thank you notes, one now applying to art school. My studio thrived, landing another national client, and I started a mentorship program, inspired by Jamal's growth. Family ties strengthened slowly. Mom and Dad invited me to holiday dinners, asking about my work with real interest. Olivia and I grew closer, planning a 3rd retreat. Ethan and Mason checked in regularly, and Noah sent occasional texts. Sophia and Emma remained distant, but I focused on therapy, letting go of what wasn't mine to fix. One evening, sketching at my desk, I looked at Clara and Henry's photo. The retreat was their legacy, reborn through me. I turned rejection into a haven, not just for myself, but for anyone who'd felt unseen. Opening my laptop, I began drafting next year's plans, knowing this was only the beginning. Fall in San Francisco brought crisp air and a flurry of activity. My studio was busier than ever, with the National Retail Campaign earning a design award and new clients lining up. Jamal, Priya, and our newest freelancer, Elena, formed a tight team, their laughter filling our loft office as we brainstormed over coffee and sketches. I loved mentoring them, seeing their confidence grow, but the pace left little time for reflection. At night, I'd sit at my desk, Clara and Henry's photo a quiet anchor, and work on plans for the third Creative Souls retreat, set for next summer at the Hartwell Estate. The alumni chat was alive with excitement, and early bird tickets sold out in a week. 45 spots, the estate's full capacity. Lauren and I secured more sponsors, including a Tahoe art supply store, and expanded the scholarship fund to cover 4 young creatives. Olivia's art therapy workshop was a hit last year, so we planned 2 sessions, and she recruited a colleague to teach meditation. Zoe offered to lead a poetry workshop, inspired by our Oakland poet guest. The retreat felt like a living thing, growing beyond my wildest dreams. Family ties kept evolving, some stronger, some strained. Mom and Dad invited me to their house for Thanksgiving, a small gathering with just my siblings and their families. Walking into their dining room, the smell of roasted turkey and sage filling the air, I felt a mix of hope and caution. Dad carved the turkey, asking about my studio's award, his interest more natural than before. Mom shared a story about Grandma Clara's holiday pies, her voice soft with memory. Ethan sat next to me, passing the mashed potatoes. Lila's art teacher says she's gifted, he said, smiling. She wants to show you her portfolio. I grinned, promising a studio visit. Mason, across the table, chimed in about his new law practice, a small firm focused on community cases. It's less money, but I sleep better, he said, catching my eye. Our bond, rekindled at the retreat, felt solid. Olivia was her warm self, planning our next retreat meeting over dessert. Noah was quieter, but he asked about my pottery workshop, a sign he was trying. Sophia and Emma, though, kept their distance. Sophia's comments were polite but clipped, and Emma focused on her kids, avoiding me. Later, in the kitchen helping Mom with dishes, I brought it up. Sophia and Emma seem off, I said, drying a plate. Mom sighed, setting down a glass. They're struggling, Maya. Your retreat's success, that's hard for them. They've always been the ones who fit our mold. Her honesty surprised me. I'm not trying to outshine anyone, I said. I just needed my own space. She nodded, touching my arm. I know. They'll come around or they won't. You keep doing you. Her words, simple but real, eased something in me. In therapy, Dr. Lee helped me process the dinner. You're setting boundaries while staying open, she said, her voice calm. That's strength. What do you want from Sophia and Emma? I leaned back, thinking. I want them to see me, not their idea of me. But I'm okay if they don't. I've got my people. Dr. Lee smiled, a rare break in her professional calm. That's healing, Maya. The holidays brought more connection. I hosted a studio party, inviting my team, retreat alumni, and family. Ethan and Lila came, Lila proudly showing her sketchbook to Jamal, who gave her tips. Olivia brought her husband, and they mingled with Zoe and Julian. Mason showed up alone, his usual charm dialed up as he joked with Celeste. Dad surprised me by stopping by, clutching a bottle of wine. Thought I'd see this famous studio, he said, looking at my awards. We talked for an hour, his questions about my process thoughtful. As he left, he hugged me, a brief, awkward gesture, but a first. Planning the retreat consumed winter. I visited the Hartwell estate with Lauren and Beatrice, the lake frozen and pines dusted with snow. Beatrice, bundled in a wool coat, pointed to the lodge's attic. Clara stored her old paintings there, she said. You should look. Upstairs, we found dusty canvases, Clara's landscapes, vibrant and free. I decided to display them at the retreat, a tribute to her spirit. Back home, I designed a retreat program booklet, including Clara's art and a dedication to her and Henry. Isabella tweaked her menu, adding Clara-inspired dishes like wild berry tarts. One evening, Sophia called, her voice tight. "I heard you're using Grandma's paintings," she said. "Why didn't you ask us?" I kept calm. Beatrice suggested it. They're part of the estate's history, like the retreat. She paused, then softened. It feels like you're taking over everything. I took a breath. Sophia, I'm honoring them, not replacing anyone. You're welcome to join, help plan anything. She didn't commit, but said, I'll think about it. It wasn't much, but it was something. Spring brought a surprise. Emma texted, asking to meet. At a park near her house, we sat on a bench, her kids playing nearby. I've been jealous, she admitted, twisting her scarf. You're doing this big thing, and I'm just a teacher, a mom. I felt left behind.
Her vulnerability floored me.
Emma, you're raising amazing kids. That's huge. I'd love you at the retreat, as you are. She teared up, nodding. Maybe I will. The exchange didn't erase years of distance, but it cracked a door open. As summer approached, I balanced studio work and retreat prep, my days long but fulfilling. The award brought more clients, and I gave my team bonuses, proud of their growth. At night, I sketched the estate, imagining guests arriving. This retreat wasn't just an event, it was my answer to rejection, a space where everyone could belong. The third Creative Souls retreat arrived under a clear Tahoe sky. Driving to the Hartwell estate, my car loaded with supplies, I felt a quiet confidence. The lodge stood proud, its porch glowing in morning light. Clara's paintings already hung in the dining hall. Lauren and Olivia were there early, arranging welcome baskets with local jams and sketchbooks. Zoe pulled up, her hug fierce. Third year, Maya. You're unstoppable, she said. Guests arrived, 45 creatives, from alumni like Julian and Celeste to new faces, including the 4 scholarship recipients, wide-eyed and eager. Isabella's kitchen hummed, the smell of fresh bread wafting through. The opening night set the tone. On the dock, lake shimmering, I raised a glass. To Clara and Henry, to creativity, to being enough as we are, I said. Cheers rose, and the week began. Olivia's art therapy sessions were packed, guests painting their stories, some crying, others laughing. Julian's photography hikes captured Tahoe's magic, and Zoe's poetry workshop had people sharing verses by firelight. Celeste's pottery classes filled the lawn with spinning wheels, and a new guest, a dancer, led sunrise movement sessions. Beatrice, now 85, held court nightly, her stories of Clara and Henry weaving the past into our present. My family's presence was the biggest change. Mom and Dad attended for 2 days, bringing Ethan, Lila, Mason, and Noah. Lila joined the kids' art workshop I'd added, her drawings bold and bright. Ethan tried photography, his banker hands awkward with a camera but willing. Mason helped with bonfire setup, joking with guests, his new practice giving him a lighter energy. Noah, still reserved, sat in on Zoe's poetry session, later admitting he wrote a few lines. Mom walked the grounds, touching Clara's old rose bushes, her eyes misty. This is what Mom wanted, she said. Dad joined a pottery class, his tie loosened, clay on his hands. At dinner, they listened to guest stories, their usual formality melting. As they left, Mom hugged me tightly. You've brought the estate back to life, she said. Dad added, We're here for this, Maya. Whatever you need. Their words felt like a homecoming. Sophia and Emma surprised me by attending the final day. Sophia arrived with her husband, her posture stiff but curious. Emma brought her kids, who ran to Lila's art table. I gave them a tour, showing Clara's paintings. Sophia paused at one, a lake sunrise. I remember her painting this, she said, voice low. I didn't realize how much you're like her. It wasn't an apology, but it was close. Emma joined the closing circle, her kids on her lap. This place feels different, she said when the candle reached her. like family but bigger. I teared up, grateful for their presence, however late. The closing circle was raw. Guests shared transformations. A poet publishing a chapbook, a scholarship teen applying to college, Lila vowing to be an artist. Beatrice spoke last. Maya's built a legacy. Clara and Henry are here, in every brushstroke, every story. Keep this alive. I cried openly, the weight of 3 years settling. Back in San Francisco, the retreat's ripples spread. The group show broke gallery records, and Celeste ceramics sold nationally. My studio launched a community art program funded by our retail client, with Jamal leading workshops for teens. I spoke at a design conference, sharing my story of turning exclusion into inclusion, the audience's applause humbling. Family ties held steady. Mom and Dad called weekly asking about my work, not just the retreat. Olivia and I planned a 4th retreat, now a nonprofit to sustain scholarships. Ethan and Mason joined me for Lila's school art show, cheering her loudest. Noah sent me a poem he'd written, raw but honest. Sophia and Emma attended my studio's next party. Awkward but trying. In therapy, Dr. Lee asked, "What's next for Maya?" I smiled. More retreats, more art, more connection. And peace with what I can't control. One night, at my desk, I opened my Tahoe sketchbook. Clara and Henry's photos sat beside it, their smiles eternal. I'd faced rejection, built my own table, and invited others to sit. The Hartwell estate was a haven, not just for me, but for anyone who'd felt unseen. My family wasn't perfect. Sophia and Emma might always hold back, but we'd found a new rhythm, one of respect, not competition. I sketched the lodge under stars, then opened my laptop, drafting next year's plans. My worth was in my hands, my heart, my creations. I was enough, and so was this life I'd built.